I will never forget the moment I watched Roberto adjust his prosthetic hand for the first time that morning. The navy blue and silver gleamed under the bedroom light, and his eyes held something I had rarely seen in an 8-year-old child: pure confidence. My son had been through more than most adults ever face, yet here he was ready to celebrate his aunt's wedding. I thought that day would bring our family closer together. I thought wrong. What happened at that wedding did not just break my heart. It shattered everything I believed about the people who were supposed to love us most. Before we dive into what happened that day, I would love to know where you are watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you believe every child deserves to be celebrated exactly as they are, hit that like button and subscribe. Trust me, you will want to see how this story unfolds. I am 33 years old and I work as a software engineer here in Denver, Colorado. My life has always been pretty straightforward. Good job, stable income, close-knit family. Or at least I thought we were close-knit. My wife, Catherine, teaches 3rd grade at an elementary school about 15 minutes from our house. She has this incredible way with kids, patient and warm in a way that makes you feel safe. That is probably why Roberto turned out so resilient. Roberto is my world. He just turned 8 last month, and that kid has more courage in his little finger than most grown men I know. When he was 3, we were driving home from a weekend camping trip. A truck ran a red light and slammed into the passenger side, where Roberto was sitting in his car seat. Catherine and I walked away with bruises and whiplash. Roberto lost his right hand. The months that followed were brutal. Surgeries, physical therapy sessions, nights when he would wake up crying from phantom pain. But Roberto never gave up. Never once did he ask why this happened to him. Instead, he asked when he could go back to playing basketball with his friends. That is the kind of kid he is. About 2 years ago, we got him fitted for a prosthetic hand. Not just any prosthetic, but one of those new high-tech ones. It cost us a fortune, even with insurance. But watching Roberto's face light up when he first moved the fingers made every penny worth it. He picked navy blue with silver accents because, in his words, it looked like something a superhero would wear. His friends at school thought it was the coolest thing they had ever seen. Some of them even asked if they could get one too. Roberto adapted fast. He learned to write, draw, shoot hoops, everything. His art teacher told us he has a real talent for sketching. The prosthetic never slowed him down. If anything, it made him more determined. He started helping other kids at school who felt different or left out. His teacher nominated him for some award, but I did not think much of it at the time. I was just proud that he was happy. My family, though, they always treated Roberto's prosthetic like it was something we needed to tiptoe around. My father, Daniel, is 65 and retired from working at a manufacturing plant. He has always been old school, traditional, the kind of guy who believes in presenting a certain image to the world. My mother, Patricia, is 62 and spent most of her life as a homemaker. She is the type who irons the pillowcases and keeps every family photo perfectly arranged on the mantel. To them, appearances matter more than almost anything. Then there is my younger sister, Stephanie. She is 29, works in marketing for some tech startup, and has always been the golden child. Growing up, Stephanie could do no wrong. When she announced her engagement last year, my parents went into overdrive planning mode. This wedding was going to be perfect, they kept saying. Absolutely perfect. 2 months before the big day, Stephanie sent out the invitations. Thick cream-colored cardstock with elegant gold lettering. The wedding was set at a resort just outside Boulder, one of those places with manicured gardens and mountain views that cost more per hour than most people make in a week. The theme was elegant garden party. White and pale pink everything. Stephanie had hired a photographer who normally shoots for magazines. She talked about nothing else for weeks. Roberto was thrilled when he found out he was going to be in the wedding party. Not just attending, but actually part of the ceremony. Stephanie had asked him to be a junior groomsman, walking down the aisle with one of her bridesmaids. He practiced his walk in our living room for days, making Catherine and me laugh with how seriously he took his role. Everything seemed fine until about a week before the wedding. Stephanie called me on a Tuesday evening. Catherine was giving Roberto a bath, so I answered in the kitchen. Her voice sounded strained right from the start. "We need to talk about the wedding photos," she said. I figured she wanted to go over the timeline or something logistical. Then she started talking about the dress code, how she needed everyone in the wedding party to wear navy blue suits. No problem, I told her. We had already bought Roberto a sharp little suit in that exact color. There was a pause. Then Stephanie said something that made my stomach drop. About Roberto's prosthetic. Is there any way he could maybe wear long sleeves or gloves? I stood there in my kitchen phone, pressed to my ear, trying to process what I was hearing. Why would he need to cover it up, I asked. He is comfortable with it. It is part of who he is. Stephanie's voice got defensive. I just want everything to look cohesive, she said. You know, for the photographer, everything needs to flow together visually. I felt this weird twist in my gut, but I pushed it down. Stephanie was stressed about the wedding. People say things they do not mean when they are under pressure. I told her I would think about it and ended the call. When Catherine asked what that was about, I waved it off. Just wedding stuff, I said. But that night I barely slept. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and clear. Perfect Colorado weather, not a cloud in the sky. Roberto was up early, excited and nervous. He put on his navy suit and asked me to help him with his tie. As I looped the fabric and tightened the knot, I looked at his prosthetic hand resting on the bathroom counter. The silver accents caught the light. It really did look like something a superhero would wear. We loaded into the car and drove to the resort. Catherine kept glancing at me with this concerned expression, but I smiled and told her everything would be fine. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe that. The resort was even more impressive in person. The garden stretched out in perfectly trimmed sections, white chairs arranged in neat rows facing an arch draped with flowers. Soft music played from hidden speakers. Guests in expensive clothes milled around, sipping champagne and admiring the setup. Roberto held my hand as we walked toward the main gathering area. People turned to look at us, and I noticed something in their expressions. Not warmth or welcome, but curiosity tinged with something else. Discomfort, maybe. Or judgment. My mother appeared first, gliding over in a pale lavender dress. She hugged me, then bent down to Roberto. Her embrace was quick, almost perfunctory. You look very handsome, sweetheart, she said, but her eyes barely met his. She straightened up and smoothed her dress. Your father is over by the bar, she told me, then hurried away before I could respond. Daniel was indeed at the bar, nursing what looked like bourbon. He gave me a nod and a half smile, but when Roberto waved at him, my father's gaze slid away. He suddenly became very interested in his drink. Catherine squeezed my arm. Something is wrong, she whispered. I know, I whispered back. But what could we do? Leave before the ceremony even started. That would cause a scene, and despite everything, I did not want to ruin Stephanie's day. We found our seats near the middle of the rows. Not the front where family usually sits, but not the back either. A comfortable middle distance. Roberto swung his legs too short to reach the ground and asked if he could have some of the mints that were in little silver dishes on each chair. I handed him one and tried to focus on the musicians tuning their instruments. About 30 minutes before the ceremony was supposed to start, I saw Stephanie near the entrance to the garden in her wedding dress. She looked beautiful, I had to admit. The dress was all lace and flowing fabric, her hair swept up with flowers woven through it, but her face was tight with tension. When she spotted us, something flickered across her expression. Not happiness at seeing her family, but worry. She caught my eye and gestured for me to come over. I told Catherine I would be right back and walked across the lawn. Stephanie was standing partially behind a decorative hedge, away from most of the guests. I need to ask you something, she said without preamble. And please do not get mad. My chest tightened. What is it? She glanced around, making sure no one was close enough to hear. About the family photos after the ceremony. Is there any way Roberto could maybe sit this one out? Or we could do separate shots, like you three in some, and the rest of us in others. I stared at her. Are you serious right now? Her eyes filled with tears, but I could not tell if they were real or strategic. This photographer cost me $12,000, she hissed. $12,000. I want these photos to be perfect, to be timeless. And Roberto's hand, it is just going to draw attention. People will focus on that instead of the actual wedding. That prosthetic is part of my son, I said, my voice low and hard. He is not hiding it for anyone, especially not for photos. Why are you making this about you? Stephanie's voice rose. This is my day. The one day that is supposed to be about me, and you cannot just do this one simple thing. Simple, I could feel heat rising in my face. You are asking me to tell my son that he is not good enough to be in your precious photos because of something he cannot control. That is not what I am saying. Then what are you saying, Stephanie? Before she could answer, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see both my parents approaching, their faces grave. Patricia's lavender dress swished as she walked faster than I had seen her move in years. What is going on here? My mother demanded. We can hear you two from across the garden. Stephanie immediately started crying harder. He will not listen to me, she sobbed. I just asked for one simple accommodation, and he is acting like I am some kind of monster. Daniel put a hand on Stephanie's shoulder. What did you ask for, honey? Through her tears, Stephanie explained about wanting Roberto to be excluded from certain photos, or to cover his prosthetic. I watched my parents' faces as she spoke, waiting for them to be outraged on Roberto's behalf, waiting for them to defend their grandson. Instead, my mother sighed. Stephanie has a point, she said. This is her special day. I felt like I had been punched. What? Daniel nodded slowly. Maybe Roberto can just stay in the background for the formal shots, or we do some photos with him and some without. That way everyone is happy. Everyone except my son, I said. Do you hear yourselves right now? This is your grandson you are talking about. The kid you have supposedly loved since the day he was born. We do love Roberto, Patricia, said her voice, taking on that sharp edge she used when she thought she was being reasonable and I was being difficult. But we also need to respect Stephanie's wishes. It is her wedding day. It is just one day, Daniel added. Why are you being so difficult about this? I looked at my father, then my mother, then my sister. These people who had always told me family came first, who had drilled into me the importance of loyalty and sticking together. And here they were asking me to make my 8-year-old son feel ashamed of something that was already hard enough for him to deal with. Catherine appeared at my elbow. I had not even heard her approach. She must have sensed something was wrong. What is happening? She asked. They want Roberto excluded from the family photos, I said flatly, because his prosthetic will ruin the aesthetic. Catherine's face went pale, then red. We are leaving, she said. Right now. Oh, do not be so dramatic, Patricia said, waving a hand dismissively. But Stephanie lost it. Fine, she shouted. If you cannot be supportive of me on my wedding day, maybe you should not even be here. Maybe it would be better if you just left. The words hung in the air between us. Around the garden, guests were starting to notice the commotion. People turned to stare. A few whispered to each other behind their hands. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. I saw someone I did not recognize anymore. Or maybe I was just finally seeing who she had always been. Maybe you are right, I said quietly. Maybe we should not be here. I turned and walked back toward where Roberto was sitting. Catherine followed. My parents called after us, but I did not turn around. When I reached Roberto, he looked up at me with those big, trusting eyes. Are we leaving, Dad? He asked. Yeah, buddy, I said. We are. But what about the wedding? Sometimes I told him taking his hand, the most important thing is knowing when to walk away. Catherine got Roberto's jacket while I dealt with the confused stares of nearby guests. A few people I barely knew came up and asked if everything was okay. One woman, an old friend of my mother's, touched my arm and said quietly, "You are doing the right thing." But most people just watched as we made our way to the parking lot. Roberto was quiet on the drive home. I kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, watching his face. He was not crying, but his jaw was set in that way he had when he was trying hard not to show he was upset. When we got home, Catherine made hot chocolate, even though it was the middle of the afternoon and warm outside. We sat at the kitchen table, the three of us, and I tried to explain what had happened without making it sound as cruel as it actually was. Did Aunt Stephanie not want me in the pictures because of my hand? Roberto asked. I wanted to lie. I wanted to protect him from that truth. But Catherine gave me a look that said we owed him honesty. Yeah, I admitted. She did. Roberto looked down at his prosthetic. But it is part of me, he said softly. I know, buddy, and that is exactly why we left. Because you are perfect exactly as you are, and anyone who cannot see that does not deserve to be part of our day. He nodded, slowly processing. Then he said something that broke me. Do Grandma and Grandpa think I am weird too? Catherine reached across the table and took his good hand. They made a mistake, she said. A really big mistake. Sometimes adults mess up just like kids do. Maybe even worse because we should know better. That night, after Roberto finally fell asleep, Catherine and I sat in the living room. She was furious, pacing back and forth, talking about how we should expose them, make them pay somehow. But I just felt empty, hollowed out. My phone buzzed. Then again, and again. I looked at the screen. Messages from my mother, from my father, from Stephanie's new husband, who I had barely even met. Patricia wrote, You overreacted. Come back tomorrow, and we can talk about this like adults. Daniel's message said, You made Stephanie cry on her wedding day. You owe her an apology. I blocked all their numbers. Just hit the button and watched their names disappear from my contact list. It felt both liberating and terrifying. The next few days were strange. I kept expecting to feel guilty, to second-guess my decision. But instead, I just felt protective. Protective of Roberto. Protective of the little family we had built. Catherine and I threw ourselves into normal life. We took Roberto to the park, helped him with his summer reading, watched movies on the couch. We did not talk about the wedding. Then about a week later, I got a phone call from a number I did not recognize. Normally, I would not have answered, but something made me pick up. Hello, is this Roberto's father? A woman's voice asked. Yes, who is this? My name is Jennifer Coleman. I am with the Colorado Kids Triumph Foundation. I am calling about your son. My heart dropped. What happened? Is he okay? Oh, he is fine. I am so sorry, I did not mean to scare you. I am calling because Roberto has been selected to receive our Young Hero Award this year. I sat down hard on the edge of the couch. I am sorry, what? The woman explained that Roberto's teacher had nominated him months ago. Apparently, Roberto had started a club at school for kids who felt different or left out. He had organized fundraisers for children's hospitals, visited younger kids who were getting prosthetics to show them they were not alone, and consistently stood up for others who were being bullied. The foundation gives the award to one child each year who shows exceptional courage and compassion. There is going to be a ceremony next Saturday, Jennifer continued. We will have some local press there, and we would love for Roberto to give a short speech if he feels comfortable. Nothing too formal, just a few words about what kindness means to him. After I hung up, I just sat there for a minute, staring at the phone in my hand. Then I called Catherine at work and told her everything. She started crying right there at her desk. When we told Roberto that evening, he looked confused. But I did not do anything special, he said. I just helped people. That is what makes it special, buddy, I told him. You did not do it for attention or awards. You did it because you saw people who needed help, and you helped them. The ceremony was held at a community center downtown. When we arrived, there were more people there than I had expected. Local news crews, photographers, families of other kids being honored. Roberto wore his Navy suit again, the one from the wedding. This time he wore it with pride. They called Roberto up to the stage, and he walked up there with his head high. The woman from the foundation presented him with a plaque and a certificate. Then she handed him a microphone. Roberto looked out at the crowd. I could see his hand shaking slightly, but his voice was steady when he spoke. My hand does not define me, he said. What I do with it does. Both my hands, actually. And I think that is true for everyone. We all have things that make us different. Things that other people might think are weird or not perfect. But those things are part of what make us who we are. And if someone cannot accept all of you, then maybe they are not the right people to have in your life anyway. The room erupted in applause. People stood up. Some were crying. Catherine grabbed my hand and squeezed so hard it hurt, but I did not care. I was watching my son, this incredible kid who had been through so much, teaching a room full of adults about courage and acceptance. After the ceremony, people came up to congratulate Roberto. The local news interviewed him. One of the reporters asked if she could do a feature story. By the time we got home that evening, my phone was buzzing with notifications. The local news station had posted a video clip on their Facebook page. It had already been shared hundreds of times. By the next morning, it had tens of thousands of shares. By that evening, over 100,000. People from all over the country were commenting, sharing their own stories about feeling excluded, about learning to embrace what made them different. Roberto's speech had struck a nerve, and then my phone rang. It was a number I had blocked, but somehow the call came through anyway. I did not answer, but the voicemail that followed made my stomach turn. It was my mother, and she was crying. "We saw the news," she said, her voice breaking. "We are so sorry. Please, we need to talk. Please call me back." Then my father. "I was wrong. I was so wrong about everything. Please let us make this right." Then, "Stephanie, I do not even know what to say. I am so ashamed of myself. What I did was unforgivable, but I am begging you to let me try to apologize. Please." The messages kept coming. Friends of my parents had sent them the video. People at the wedding had seen it online and recognized Roberto. Apparently, several guests had commented publicly about what happened, about how a family had been asked to leave because of a child's prosthetic. My family's names were not mentioned in those posts, but enough people knew. Enough people figured it out. Catherine wanted to ignore them all, block them forever, and never look back. Part of me agreed with her. But another part of me kept thinking about what Roberto had said in his speech, about how people make mistakes, but that does not mean they cannot change. I did not respond to the messages for 3 days. I needed time to think, to talk to Catherine, to figure out what was best for Roberto. Finally, I sent a single text to my mother. "If you want to apologize, you apologize to Roberto. Not to me. Not to Catherine. To him. And it needs to be real. No excuses, no justifications. Just an acknowledgement of what you did and how it hurt him." The response came within minutes. "Yes, anything." When we agreed to meet the following Saturday at a restaurant halfway between our houses, neutral territory, Catherine insisted on coming, and I was grateful. I needed her there as a buffer, as a witness, as a reminder that I was not crazy for feeling hurt and angry. My parents arrived first, looking older than I remembered. My father's face was drawn new lines around his eyes. My mother twisted a tissue in her hands. Stephanie came 10 minutes later, her eyes red and puffy like she had been crying for days. We sat down at a table in the back corner. Roberto sat between Catherine and me, his prosthetic hand resting on the table where everyone could see it. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Stephanie broke the silence. "Roberto," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I am so sorry. What I said to you, what I did, it was cruel and selfish and wrong. You did not deserve to be treated that way. You did not deserve any of it." Roberto looked at her, his face serious. "It really hurt my feelings," he said. "You made me feel like there was something wrong with me." "I know," Stephanie said, and she was crying now. "I was so focused on everything being perfect that I forgot what actually matters. I forgot that you are my nephew, and I love you, and nothing about you needs to be hidden or changed. I am so sorry." Patricia reached across the table toward Roberto, then stopped, uncertain. "We failed you," she said. "Your grandfather and I, we should have protected you. We should have told your aunt she was wrong. Instead, we went along with it. And that is something I will regret for the rest of my life." Daniel cleared his throat. "When I saw you on that stage," he said, "giving your speech, I realized something. You are braver and kinder than I ever taught you to be. You learned that somewhere else. And I am ashamed that I was not there to defend those qualities when you needed me to." Roberto listened to all of them. Then he looked at me, and I nodded slightly. Whatever he decided, I would support him. "I forgive you," Roberto said slowly. "But what you did really hurt. And I do not think things can just go back to the way they were." "We understand," Patricia said quickly. "We do. We just want a chance to prove we have learned from this, to show you that we can be better." That was 4 months ago. Since then, my parents have been making an effort. Real effort. Not just empty words. They show up to Roberto's basketball games now. They came to his school art show and spent an hour looking at every single one of his drawings. My mother even volunteered with the club Roberto, started helping him organize events and fundraisers. Stephanie sent Roberto a long letter handwritten apologizing again, and explaining that she had been so caught up in surface-level perfection that she lost sight of what really mattered. She has not asked to see us in person again, and I appreciate that she is giving us space. But she did make a post on social media not naming anyone specifically, but talking about how she learned a hard lesson about acceptance, and how appearances mean nothing if you hurt the people you love. Some of her friends commented with support. Others unfollowed her. I think that was hard for her but necessary. Things with my parents are not what they used to be. There is a wariness now, a carefulness that was not there before. I cannot forget what happened, and honestly I do not want to. That memory serves as a reminder to always put Roberto first, to never let anyone make him feel less than whole. But I also see that they are trying. And Roberto, with his huge heart, has made space for them to be part of his life again. Not in the same way, not with the same blind trust, but in a new way that feels more honest. Catherine and I have connected with other parents of kids with prosthetics and other differences. We have found a community that understands the challenges, celebrates the victories, and never makes us feel like we need to apologize for our son being exactly who he is. Roberto continues to amaze me every single day. He got invited to speak at 2 other events about acceptance and resilience. He is working with his teacher on a book project about his experiences. And just last week, a little girl in his class who wears a hearing aid told him thank you for making her feel brave enough to stop hiding it under her hair. I learned something through all of this. Family is not just about blood or obligation. It is about who stands by you when the world gets hard. It is about who celebrates every part of you, not just the parts that photograph well or look good on social media. And sometimes the hardest lesson is learning that love without respect is not really love at all. The beautiful part, the part that gives me hope, is that Roberto already knew that. He understood it in a way that took me 33 years to figure out. He knew his worth, knew that his prosthetic hand was not something to hide, but something that made him who he is. He was just waiting for the rest of us to catch up. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to stand up for someone you love, even when it meant going against your own family? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story touched you, if it made you think about how we treat people who are different, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more real stories about real-life challenges and how we overcome them. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that being different is not just okay. It is beautiful. Thank you for listening to our story. I hope it reminds you that the people worth keeping in your life are the ones who love all of you, not just the easy parts. Take care of yourselves and each other.